Dungeons and Dragons is whether a magic using class, in fifth edition at least, whether they have their power of their own accord, whether they get it from someplace else. So wizards are, I think, maybe the only class that has their magical ability. Actually, wizards and bards maybe
What about
have their
monks?
magical ability.
Monks too.
Monks don't really have spell slots, do they?
Yeah, they're a little different, but it's like nature
Right.
magic kind of.
Right. But for this is for spell slots. And the reason for the distinction in the reason I want to emphasize the distinction when you're thinking about it is that it has something to do with the difference between the ways that you pick spells. So a cleric, for instance, gets their magic directly from their deity, and they can just pick a new list of spells every morning because their deity just gives them their magic. No problem.
Okay.
They just pick which ones they want to make a space in their soul for, and their deity just like blop gives it to them. And I think sorcerers are the same. No, not sorcerers. Warlocks are the same way,
Yeah.
right? A warlock can just pick every morning. They just pick which spells from their list they want to know for that day, and that's what they have. Wizards are the far other end of that scale, where every spell that a wizard knows, they've like trained their mind for maybe years to learn that specific spell. They cannot just use one spell one day and another spell another day. There's a whole process. They have a book, their spells are written in the book. If they learn a new spell, like they write it in the book. Or like if you're a wizard character,
That's my guy.
anyway, wizards, so whatever class you pick, you've got to get really familiar with how they learn their spells and how you get to pick new spells.
Okay.
But so the difference for warlocks are like priests, except like bad. So they've made a pact with some like deity or evil god or demon or something, and that's the source of their power. Sorcerers have an outside entity that's the source of their power, but it is coming through them.
I thought-
Bloodline.
Sorry, go ahead.
So like
Their parents or grandparents or whatever, they had magical powers that were so magical
Right.
throughout their bloodline, they kept the magic powers,
Right.
and that's how sorcerers
so
work.
the sorcerer doesn't have their power because of their own effort, but they also don't get it directly from some outside force, if that makes sense. And so the sorcerer picks spells in a way that's sort of halfway between the wizard and the cleric.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
And the sorcerer is a little bit like the there's another one that's like that. I think maybe bard. Anyway,
Yeah,
And are they divided into anything like different types of spells?
yes. So the warlock gets like fairly standard. What's special about warlock spells? They just get special stuff that they can do like any other class gets.
So-
But sorcerers have a very different thing going on where they get like sorcery points, which is a different kind of thing than spell slots. So if you were going to choose for like the first time you were going to play D&D 5th edition, sorcerer is a more complicated class because you have to keep track of two different kinds of like spell type resource.
Okay.
You have spell slots and you get very few spell slots, but then you have this other resource that lets you like do stuff to the spells that you cast. So a sorcerer is going to be like, I cast Fireball at level 2, and I'm going to expend one of these points to double it.
Okay.
And it's going to be like, you just did 120 hit points of damage. So sorcerers can do like these amazing things, but they're a little bit more. You have to put your character together kind of and figure out exactly how to make it work. Whereas the warlock is probably a little bit simpler.
yeah. They have the least. They have like 2 or 3 spell slots, but they also have the maximum spell slots. So, instead of having like 3 first levels, 2 second levels, and 1 third level, they just had like 3 third level slots that they can use for any spell. And those can be really powerful and also really big wastes of spell slots. So you gotta choose carefully.
That's Warlock?
Yeah, that's Warlock.
So when the Warlock levels up, they go from being able to cast like 3 tiny spells to being able to cast like 4 enormous spells.
Yeah.
However, so warlocks are the ones who make a deal with a demon or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's not an allowed class for this campaign. Warlock. All the other magic classes you can use.
Okay. So bard, monk,
I'm so glad
sorcerer, and wizard, and cleric.
Yes.
And of those, the intelligence ones are wizard. Just wizard?
Give me a second.
I think it might just be wizard.
Bard is charisma. Cleric is wizard. Cleric is wisdom. Druid is wisdom. Monk is dexterity and wisdom. Sorcerer is charisma. Warlock is charisma. Wizard is intelligence. And artificer is intelligence. I don't think we really have artificers here.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense for them.
It is weird that wizard is the only intelligence spellcasting class.
I think they're the only intelligence class of any kind.
Yeah.
So, hey, Sir Robert. I feel like I need some more parameters of the world to help myself figure out these characters. What's the, from what you said, it sounds like everybody's in a small village. Are there bigger...
Yeah.
What's the range of sizes of...
Yeah. So first of all, have I sent you that document? Have you seen that? Okay. Let me share that with you real quickly, and you can read it. You can skim through, or you can read it at your leisure later. But I'll also tell you the things that I was going to say. Give me a second. Give me a second. I know I have it here somewhere. Public to players. There's a folder called Public to Players, which I will share with you in Google Docs, and then you will have the world at your fingertips. I'll share that with you too, Jacob. With all of you. Well, no right click on Google Docs.
While you're doing that, so the Iron Bell, they disallow basically any significant civilized warfare. Like they don't allow metal tools, so there's not like standing armies among these villages that they take tribute from.
Right.
But there's these like little. I'm imagining something more on the level of gang wars.
So
happening.
The towns basically here's the common knowledge, though it's not all with proof. So not everybody has seen with their own eyes. People don't travel much. There are some bands of people called wayfarers who travel a bit, and they like trade between towns. And they're kind of like you can think of them sort of like a gypsy band, and their family. They're like a big family, but they're also defend each other. Sort of nomadic towns, like really small, 20 people, and they go between towns and pass news, other stories, whatever. And you kind of don't want to mess with them, and they et cetera, et cetera. So here's the kind of common knowledge that people have. One, that at the headwater, way somewhere nobody knows, is where the Iron Bell lives, or is from, or whatever. Outward from that, downriver from that, these six waters come out. These 6 rivers in forming, roughly evenly spaced, come out of there, and those feed the forests. Everything grows because of that water. The further you get, so when you're at the very center and you come down a little bit, you have heard of cities that are large stone and wood cities that you would think of as like medieval London. You've heard of cities with thousands of people. You've definitely never seen anything like that. Where you guys live, which is like on a dartboard, it's like the biggest section. It's kind of not the outer rim, but like in a little bit from the outer rim. The towns are a maximum of about 180 people and a minimum of maybe 3 people.
Sorry, I'm dealing with dog stuff and have a little bit more dog stuff to deal with. I'll be back in a few.
Not a problem.
So I have this one guy. Let me just show you him again. He has a really high charisma, so I think he would gravitate towards like more social environments.
Uh-huh.
So I'm trying to think of like, well, what would that look like for this world? He could be like, he still wouldn't, you're saying we're not going to be from a big town. If he was from one of the larger towns, it would be like 100 people.
Maybe 150, 180 people would be a pretty sizable town in this region. Remember, towns keep getting like burned down and raided and stuff like that. And sometimes small towns merge and become a little bit bigger, but the biggerness of that is going to be up to 150 people. So you're looking at feudal European, kind of millet-eating, poor environments. He was born with very high charisma, or he developed it or whatever, which is great, but that doesn't, somebody who lives in a backwater little town in the middle of nowhere with not very many people can be super charismatic. Doesn't really affect how they were born.
Because there's not much mobility between.
That's right.
Okay.
If you probably, until you left your town because you had to flee, you probably have not left a dozen times in your life.
Okay.
Because you don't want to get eaten by some animal. You don't want to get slaved by some opportunistic kind of Joseph slaver. It's not worth it to leave.
And there's no writing or lore allowed.
Right. That doesn't mean there isn't any. As Josh's character backstory points out, his town had writing, although they couldn't read it. But the whole village paid the price for keeping it secret. So.
Okay.
And you will meet people who can read and write, and they will be very wary of telling strangers that they can read and write because they don't want to get their whole family slaughtered or enslaved. But on the other hand, the reason that I put that in the story is because reading and writing are actually important in this story. So
like lore includes, basically to be a bard would be an outlawed thing.
No. Bards can do all kinds of songs.
That aren't about the past.
Yeah, you don't have to tell stories about the past. You can make up stories.
Okay, about the past.
Lore about the world, right? Because a bard can tell, can sing Louie, Louie, whatever.
Or just do.
Yeah. Drum circles. That's right.
Okay.
The Beach Boys. Man, I
just
really
had
love those awesome green leaves.
Wait.
That's right.
Did people know that leaves was green before you sang that song?
And I should say, by the way, lore being illegal is notoriously at the discretion of the tribute captains.
Okay.
You are not living in a rule of law situation. This is absolutely power and abuse of power. And
surely there's tons of lore. It's just affected by.
There's no way parents are going to raise their kid and not tell them some stuff. Yeah. Like, boy, we used to live in that house. That's, strictly speaking, that's illegal if there were even a strict definition. But it's also a ridiculous standard.
Okay.
So do you want to know something interesting?
Yeah.
Always.
This is completely off topic.
Thanks.
Yeah, right.
I'm just kidding.
I was reading The Golden Bough by George Fraser,
Okay.
and he reports that some missionaries encountered some people from this tribe, and they started trying to make a dictionary of these the people's language, right? And so, but they found that what happened is that everybody in the tribe was named after normal stuff, like snake or rock or boot or cloud or whatever.
Sure.
And whenever anybody died, it was taboo to say their name because the author thinks that it's because their angry ghost might come back and haunt you if you say their name.
Okay.
So
they're getting a diminishing vocabulary.
No, they make up new words.
Crud.
How exciting! Woo!
So the poor missionaries have to have this dictionary where every couple of years they cross out a word and have to write in a new one because the old people of the tribe just make up a new word.
Wow.
So,
man.
Reportedly, these people had no record of their own history because you weren't allowed to speak about people who had died. You couldn't say, our last leader fought against this tribe over there because your last leader is dead and you cannot refer to them or mention them.
Wow, man.
So they had no concept of their history. Their language changed every generation. Like almost every word cycled out. And George Fraser's like, why?
That's pretty cool.
But also, this is definitely not like contemporary ethnology. This is like a classic work, which probably got a lot of stuff wrong for the internet.
Sure.
But it's at least an interesting story.
Yeah.
For what it's worth,
Anyway,
we
go
have,
on
all
with
of
what
our
you were
stuff
talking
written
about.
down and we
Yeah.
know it. And
That's right.
But
Unlike
it's also
we highly literate moderns who have everything right.
yes, exactly. But it's not completely crazy for large chunks of like knowledge to be completely forgotten because they're forbidden.
Yeah.
That's pretty normal for people
Yeah.
to
or
do
for
that
who
sort of
knows
thing.
why, Nicaea.
Yeah, right. It got forgotten. So, first of all, thanks, y'all. This has been going great. We have, we don't have to use the whole time, but we have about half an hour left. I had two more things I wanted to do besides any questions or, compliments or comments that y'all might have. The two things I wanted to do were, like I said before, I was going to have a music appreciation section where Matt and I have independently, each of us, he's recorded what's going to be the intro for the season 3 episodes, and I have recorded what's going to be the outro. And so we thought y'all might like to hear those, and there you go. And I don't know how well music plays over Jitsi, but let's find out. The other thing is I was going to read you a little bit more information that your characters, tell you some more information that your characters would know. I know that I've created a kind of idiosyncratic world mechanically. D&D has a bunch of preset stuff, but for reasons that you don't know but were sort of important for the storyline and some stuff that I'm not going to tell you more about, I had to make the world a little weird. And it'll eventually, hopefully, come clear. Hopefully you all haven't rage quit by then and don't know and to care. But anyway, so let's do the little bit of music appreciation first, just for a break of cadence, and then basically it's just the two songs. One is Matt's, which is utterly fantastic, and is the intro. I really, really like it, Matt. It's really good. And I'm going to go to gmail.com. I just said that for anybody who's listening. Gmail. Let's see. And Josh, you heard this one, right? In the email thread.
You're muted.
Josh might be muted.
You could say I've heard it.
Okay.
And We will.
Maybe I will.
I won't.
No
Okay.
one expected you to.
So here's the one from Matt. The reason that we have these is, one, to increase the production value a little bit, and two, it is mood setting, and whatever else my season is, it is moody. So
Which is why my first draft, which was going to have Vietnam helicopters and like Doors kind of acid power jazz guitar, that got 86.
I actually liked it, Josh, but it was just so different than what I had in mind. Because I'm so like, this is so low.
If I had a nickel for every
I'd like
time.
to hear Josh's version.
I would have done it, Josh, except that I don't have any drums or know how to record the drums or know any drummers who would play it for me and record it.
That was the other part of it that I was forgetting, was that my vision for this was a $8,000 to $10,000 rented band soundscape kind of booth situation. So yeah, it didn't.
Next time.
Yeah, it didn't have legs. It had dreams.
So, here is the intro. I'm going to play a few seconds of it, and then I'm going to pause. I just want you three who are not here to tell me if you can hear it.
Okay.
If it makes, if it's intelligible. So let's see what we got. This is Matt sitting at his microphone. There.
Go your own way, stones and shadows by. Willows whisper of darkness deep and wide. In the forest, there is no place to hide. Strange bells, tonight I fear that I will not survive the dying of the light.
And this.
Love it.
Yeah, there you go. That's where I would start talking. Isn't that great?
Yeah,
That is
that was
so good.
cool.
Matt, I had not said anything to you about this, but the Wayfarers in the intro document, which I have now sent links to all of y'all for it. My thought of them, that mood like perfectly fits them. I sort of had them as like Northern European gypsies, and that like captures that. That's so good. Anyway, so that's gonna be the intro that's gonna play. I'm not sure. I'll figure out some way to do it where, maybe it'll be on the podcast only, or maybe it'll be for the stream. I don't know. The outro is one that I put together, and the mood is different because I'm intentionally having us leave on a more somber note. Here's the outro.
Keep on running through the jungle. Just a shadow, thin and slight. Though I know that I'll make it. Past the dying of the light. Hear the iron bells are tolling, and they're drawing slowly near. Oh, they're bringing with a nightfall. And they're bringing with them fear. And the tribute men are coming, coming for another slave. Make me swing that heavy hammer, till my gray head's in the grave. So I fled to the forest, fled from all I've ever known, and there's nothing to remember. And there's nowhere left to go. And the day is getting dimmer, oh, the beasts are drawing near. And though all of us are hungry, they don't share my fear. So I keep running through the jungle, just a shadow, thin and slight. Though I know that I won't make it past the dying of the light.
So that's the outro.
Okay.
Jared, sorry I had to mute you because I realized Matt had muted himself and I had not muted myself, and so I just went ahead and made sure that everybody but Sir Robert was muted.
Oh, thanks.
So,
That's cool.
Part of the
Yeah, that
reason
was
for
beautiful.
Thanks.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it was really
A
good.
good mood.
Yeah, that's the kind of atmosphere. So, like you were asking earlier, Matt, about jokes regarding Oval. I totally don't mind them, but they're in the setting that's somber, and jokes. No matter how hard your circumstances, people are going to be people with a little bit of levity, and that's totally cool. But this one is not a classic dungeon romp. What do they call them? Carousel, whatever that old school D&D term was.
Kick down the door.
Funhouse dungeon. Where it's like, woo, crazy stuff. So that said, like, jokes are cool. I don't mind that. Like, let's have some fun, do whatever. Remembering that our setting is the story we're telling has that mood in it, which is cool.
We would have gallows humor, but they took all our gallows.
That's right. That's it. Cool. So
Well, there's a funny way to do poopomancy, and then there's an incredibly somber and dark way to do it too. So,
which is the real way.
yeah,
Romantic.
indeed.
Coppermancy, that's right. Cool. So, hey, there's two more things I have left. One of them's really short, but one of them mechanical about how we'll play. But I was also going to show you, in addition to that other document that I had, I've been writing some content for the website. For those of you who didn't remember, I said it earlier, but it's go to the starfallchronicles.com. It has just some budding, nascent content now, but it'll have more later.
That's
And
almost right.
starfallcollective.com. Crud. You know, we almost called it the Starfall Chronicles, and that has stuck in my head for so long.
Everything
name.
is called Chronicles.
What's that?
Everybody else is Chronicles. Not us.
That's
Riddick,
right.
Narnia. I'm sure there are others.
That's right. The Chronic What Codes of Narnia? This is Roscoe.
Hey
Purvis
there,
Coltrane.
Roscoe P. Bosco.
All right. Okay, so here's another thing I was going to say. I realized in the document that I had given you, there was not... It had a few gaps of the stuff that your characters need to know. Things like, for example, money. And because that's going to matter for the season. So I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of that. As far as you know, each of the 6 big rivers has somewhere towards the Iron Bell. Each one has its own kind of port city that's probably, you don't know, it has some unthinkably large number of people, like 1,000, you know, or something like that. You don't have any idea, but you've heard stories from the Iron Bell or from whoever that are in there that, like, it's got, you know, stone walls or something. That they must have had so much infrastructure to build, you know, that kind of thing. So there are, as far as you know, for the 6 major... Sorry, go ahead.
And extra food.
That's right. Extra, all of that. And security, right? Because nobody attacks them because they're the Iron Bell and the big, you know, whatever. Anyway, so there's a little bit of illegal lore about that. So as far as you know, there are the 6 rivers, the 6 rivers everybody knows about that come out like spokes from a wheel from the headwater. And there's a city on each of those. And basically the function of those cities, and you know this, is that's where the tributes are taken. And then from there, presumably they're taken all the way to the headwater or Iron Bell. You know, you just made up something about that and you believe it's true or whatever. So the tribute patrols take 5 things. There's 5 things they pay people for. If you find somebody, if you come across somebody who has extra copper, or any copper probably, they probably are a town leader or got it from a town leader or whatever, who has been paid for one of these things. First, they pay for slaves. So if you find somebody who's wealthy, they might be a slaver. You know, just be aware of that. You have no idea what slaves are taken for, but you know that they don't take sickly people much. They want strong people, and they're very clear it's for slaving. So that's one of the things that the Iron Bell does. They take tribute. The other thing, these are 5 things that the Iron Bell does that you kind of are aware of. Number 2 is they encourage town growth, procreation. As far as you can tell, it seems to be for the sake of taking tribute. They want more slaves. And so they're not decimating your town, they're culling, and they usually come and take about 10% of your population once every year, something like that. It's not like constantly just decimating you. They appear to be farming everyone for slaves. The tribute patrols are.
Ooh, 10% every other year is
Or, you know, whatever the
hard to
thing
replace.
is. Yeah. Well, you go get them from other tribes and other places. So they take them at a somewhat arbitrary seeming rate, but it's around there. And again, they do pay you for the people. So that's, you know, part of the... Some people are just evilly motivated to receive that money. So they encourage town growth. And that town growth can be either through, splitting a town or making it bigger. If your town gets too big, they shrink it. So your town doesn't get too big. Another thing they do is they destroy the beasts. Everybody knows that there is no north, south, east, west meaningfully in the world. That's not really a concept that makes sense because there are no stars, there's no sky. You have never heard of anything like a sky or stars or moon or sun or anything like that. What there is there's upriver and downriver. And even when you're not on the river, you're generally aware that you're going upriver towards the headwater or downriver away from the headwater. And you're also aware that the more dangerous beasts are further from the Iron Bell. One of the things that Tribute Patrol does is they kill the dangerous beasts that are encroaching in their farmlands, to put it sort of crassly. So going further away from the Iron Bell makes you safer from the Iron Bell and also makes you at great risk from beasts. Fleeing from the beasts makes you safer from the beasts and at greater risk from Iron Bell. The third thing that the Tribute Patrols are very well known to do is they suppress rebellion. Anyone caught outside of town is at risk being assumed a rebel. Typically, traveling merchants, the wayfarers, and things like that are excused if they can prove with sufficient money that they are not rebels or some kind of valuable. Towns that refuse to give tribute are considered rebels. Random people who are out doing random stuff between towns, for all we know, you're a rebel, and you might be a rebel. It's the whim of the particular guy you run into. So